Hello, welcome to the RTE Soccer Podcast. I'm Mikey Stafford, and I am joined by Anthony Pyne of RTE Sport Online. How you doing, Anthony?
I'm good, Mikey. How are you?
Good, good. Happy Christmas to you.
Yeah, and same to you. Same to you.
We're here to introduce an interview you did with Eamon Zayed. Very interesting character, Eamon Zayed. We'll talk about him in a minute, but it's basically he's a new manager of the Northern Colorado Hailstorm. The much travelled Eamon Zayed gonna his very his very storied career. I think it could make him an excellent manager. There's not much he couldn't have seen at this stage, I'd say.
Yeah, well, this is it. I mean, he's not a guy who's unafraid of taking risks or trying new things. And no, it was an interesting chat with Eamon because he's played in Iran, he's played in Malaysia, but he's been in the States for the last few years, and this is a fresh challenge for him. Taking on they're a completely new club, completely new franchise in Colorado, and they have already brought in Rob Cornwall from Bowls, and chatting to him, they plan to bring Irish players over.
Mm.
Um, and he did mention that he's been actually a little bit surprised that there's some Irish players who are a little reluctant to go to the States and join him in Colorado because he is very actively trying to bring Irish players over. So Rob Cornwall won't be the last. I think there is someone already guaranteed that he didn't name, but that's coming, and then he wants to bring a couple more. So be
Yeah,
interesting keeping an eye on it.
that is interesting because there has been kind of dribs and drabs. There's a few lads have gone over: Richie Ryan, Dan Casey, and a few like that. Not, but not never too many. Considering there is it's like the standard is not. You're not talking about the big 4 or 5 leagues in Europe. Like there are opportunities over there for promising young professionals. The pay isn't astronomical, but it's the life experience side of it. I suppose that's
Yeah,
probably the
yeah.
big selling point.
It's the lifestyle, it's the facilities. Like this is this new club, Northern Colorado Hailstorm, will be in what is the third tier in the US soccer divisions. Although there's no promotion or relegation. So according to Eamon, their facilities would rival some of the MLS clubs. Colorado Rapids are an MLS club. Kevin Doyle had a
Mm.
stint there. People might remember. And the chairman, Patrick Smith, is from Meath, I think. So there's a pretty strong soccer stronghold there, and looks like there's room for another club. They're ambitious, and as I said, we'll see. I think they're not going to strive to be in the MLS because the money is astronomical. Just to get into the MLS, you're looking at $200 million just to get in, and you have to have a stadium that's worth a certain amount, and you have to have an owner that's worth a certain amount. So that's not what they're looking at. But I think it's just to establish themselves over the next few years and potentially get into the next tier up, which is the championship. So there's the MLS, the championship, and then there's this new third tier, which is where Northern Colorado will be entered. So
Okay. A little closer to home this week, we had the Premier Division and First Division fixtures being released, which is always a nice time for fans. Obviously, kind of start planning out your year. You're playing everyone 4 times, but you don't know in what order exactly. So, Shamrock Rovers champions. They're at home on the 18th of February against UCD. And the cynic in me, Anthony, is just wondering. The only question with that match is who Colin Whelan will be playing for.
yeah, look, I mean, this is the season. There's plenty of moving and jumping around. I think Dundalk have Derry on the opening weekend as well. So like Derry have signed 4 players from Dundalk in the off season: McElhenney, Duffy, Will Patching, and Cameron Dummigan. So there'll be plenty. Obviously, Damien Duff's debut as well as Shelbourne manager. There's lots of little plots and things to look forward to. Um, and
And
as you
the
say,
rebirth of Bray, of course.
the rebirth of Bray Caballtini minus the Caballtini. But look, it's because there's a lengthy wait for these fixtures. Um, let's just hope the fans can actually go. When we get to that stage, because the first weekend of League of Ireland football, pre-COVID, which feels like an age ago now, but if you remember that opening weekend, it was really, really positive. Like the attendances
Mm.
were excellent. Now it doesn't always mean that it's sustained. But the last few years is really good momentum, positive momentum, and the FAI Cup final as well, which I think had over 37,000 people at the Aviva. So let's just hope that um, they're allowed to have full houses by the time we get to there. And I think if that is the case, and you should see really healthy crowds on that opening weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. We have another bit of news, obviously that's breaking this morning. This morning being Wednesday, that Ian Morris is taking over as Waterford FC manager. A brave man, shall we say?
Yeah.
He was looking for a job in management. Obviously, there's only so many of them. There was rather a rather public vacancy came up there before Waterford even played UCD in the promotion relegation
Mm.
playoff final when Mark Bircham fell out with the owners. It as managerial hot seats go, it's kind of it's a scalding one, really, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it's been a wild period there, and they need stability. They need to give a manager time to kind of settle things down there. The way the season ended was just desperately disappointing for Waterford fans. Bircham is quite a colourful character, I guess, but he is a good manager and he was doing a good job. He had got them on an upward curve and they just wobbled on the home straight. And then going into that playoff game, like what happened on that week was just a disaster. I mean, it's very difficult for a team to stay focused going into such a big game after what happened. And ultimately, when they were they were deservedly beaten as well. And I think the players would admit that themselves. It was just a nightmare end to a really difficult period for them, just when it looked like things were starting to settle down. So it's a challenge for Ian Morris, but he's a hungry manager that will feel he has something to do. He's also got a good record in that division. He's taken Shelbourne out of that division twice. So I think Waterford fans will be really happy with that appointment. And now we just have to wait and see. Does he get time? Will he go the distance? I
Yeah.
think if he does, then Waterford have a really good chance of bouncing back up.
Yeah, as you look at the first division and just from a kind of back of a fag box kind of analysis of it, you'd say, obviously Cork City, they're probably down there longer than other people would have thought they would be, so you'd be expecting a push this year. John Caulfield's second full season in charge of Galway, he's Lisa Fallon there with him, obviously doing good things. Longford will be slightly chastened after their Premier Division experience, but obviously they were good enough to get out the last time. Um, and then there's obviously a few unknowns. The biggest one being the South Dublin North Wicklow collaboration that is Bray Wanderers. So
Mm.
it's no cakewalk by any means. The first division never has been.
No, it isn't. The teams will play each other four times, and that sort of familiarity makes it extra hard. The way that the playoffs go as well. If you can have a really good season and then get done in the playoffs, so it's hard. And as you rightly say, Galway, Cork, um, Bray are a little bit of an unknown quantity just in terms of how that amalgamation will pan out and what players will be left in the shake. Um, but it should be interesting.
Yeah. Right. Let's move on to the main event. You remember though, you used to get that game when you get a screenshot of someone's Wikipedia, of someone's career from Wikipedia, and you have to figure out who the player was. I think
Yeah.
Eamon Zayed would be a real gimme if you got
Mm.
him. I'm just going to humor me here, people. I'm actually just going to read this out. It doesn't even include Leicester City, where he was. He played for their under-19s and their reserves before they were relegated, and he came back. So his senior career consisted of Bray Wanderers, Crew Alexandria, Eddisons, Drogheda United, Sporting Fingal, Derry City, Persepolis, Aluminium Hormozgan, Shamrock Rovers, Sligo Rovers, Saba, Indy 11, Charlotte Independence, and he finished up in 2020 with the Chattanooga Red Wolves.
Yeah.
The man's he's had the kind of football career I think in my head I would have liked to have had if I was ever any good at football.
Well, this is it. I mean, playing football has taken him all around the world, and that's the reward that Eamon Zayed had for taking risks and trying different things. He just missed out, I think, at Charlotte Independence. He just missed out on the Jim McGuinness reign. I think he moved on just after or just before McGuinness came in. But he has been there. He's been in the States, I think, for the last 5 or 6 years. And when I was chatting to him earlier this week, that's how we started off. He was telling me a bit about how that's been and how he eventually hung up his boots and began taking his first steps into coaching with this new franchise, Northern Colorado Hailstorm.
Yeah, it's been great. Great decision. Absolutely loved it. No regrets. Came over 2016. Initially, it was a year contract with a team called Indy 11 in what was the NASL. Yeah, a year turned into another year. in Indiana. And after that, 2018, I went to Charlotte Independence for a year in the USL Championship. And then my old coach from Indy 11, Tim Hankinson, took over a USL League One side, which was a brand new league in 2019 in Chattanooga Red Wolves. And I went in as a player coach. I knew that my playing days were well, look, I wanted to play for as long as I could, but I knew that I couldn't play forever, unfortunately. So, I think I was 35, 36 at the time going to Chattanooga Red Wolves. So, it was a 2-year deal to play and coach.
And this, so you are now the coach of Northern Colorado Hailstorm, which is a completely new team, a new club. Can you tell us how exactly that came about?
Yeah. So Northern Colorado Hailstorm, they announced that they were going to enter USL League One. I think the beginning of this year, they announced that they were going to start playing in 2022. So I remember, on social media, I remember hearing about it, and it's funny. I mean, football in Ireland's a small world. Everybody knows everybody, but also in America, for such a massive, massive place, the soccer world, as they call it over there. Again, it's relatively, once you're there for for a fair amount of years, everybody knows everybody. So there was talk of Colorado coming in, and they announced it, and I literally, I had left Chattanooga, got on a phone call with Colorado a couple of months after their announcement, and we began just to talk about the club coming in, how I may fit in there, and after I think 3-4 discussions, couple of interviews, they officially offered me the job in the summer. So I was only too delighted and to take over. I just finished my UEFA A license with the FAI back home. So it was a fantastic opportunity for me to go into head coach and straight after, obviously, just finishing up.
So some people, Eamon, might be familiar with Colorado Rapids, which an MLS team, but is this a totally separate entity now? There's no connection to the Rapids.
It's a separate entity. It's funny how small football worlds are. The president, general manager of Colorado Rapids is an Irish guy called Porrick Smith. And I actually met him. I think my first week I arrived into Colorado, I met him. And he told me he used to support me when I played for Drogheda. He was from Drogheda United, and he used to watch all our European games and would be down supporting us. So small world, but no. We'll have a relationship with the Colorado Rapids. We'll play a couple of preseason friendly games against them. We may take some of their players on loan, some of their younger players perhaps, but no, it's a separate entity, independent. We are about an hour and a half north of Denver and Colorado Rapids.
So one big acquisition that you've made that's generated Irish interest was Rob Cornwall. How exactly did that come about, and what do you expect Rob can bring to the team?
Yeah, absolutely delighted to get Rob. So as soon as I took over, since I've been in America the last 5-6 years, any of the Irish lads that have gone over have done really well. Richie Ryan, James Chambers, most recently Dan Casey went over to Sacramento, and Rob's defensive partner at Bowes, and has done well. So as soon as I took over, every team can have 7 internationals, and I knew that I was going to look at the Irish market, because I just feel that there's a good amount of players over here in Ireland that could fit in and bed in well in America. It's already proven. Just their style of play, their kind of humble background, the way they could easily fit into the American culture. So I've looked at a couple of players, to be honest, and Rob won't be the only Irish player coming over. There's definitely one more, and hopefully a couple more after that. But no, I was delighted to get Rob. I actually remember having a conversation with the head coach of Sacramento after he signed Dan Casey, and I actually said to him, I know I like Dan Casey, but I just felt Rob was a better centre half, and I asked him why he didn't go for Rob, and he said Rob wasn't available. That's what he told me. So as soon as I took over, I began kind of reaching out to a couple of people, and Rob's name cropped up, and I didn't know what his situation was with Bowes. He's done really well there. He's been there for 5 years. vice captain of the club. But he was interested. He was interested in just trying something new. And again, had a few conversations with him over. It wasn't a decision he took lightly. He thought about it for a long time. Because I know he loves Bows. But I'm delighted to have him. I think he's going to be a leader for me. He'll put his, he's a winner, which I think you need in the dressing room over there in America. I think that's another thing that kind of Irish players are they're workers and they want to win. They have that never say die attitude, and sometimes it's taken for granted. Because I've played around the world, and trust me, there's many cultures that it's just not the same. Win, lose, draw, it's just not the same. It doesn't mean to as much to them as it does to an Irish player. Like, we hate losing. So he's going to bring that, and he's quality. I played with him. I played with Rob back in 2014, 13, when he was at Shamrock Rovers. He was just a young lad coming through. I think he must have been 18, 19 at the time. And I remember him since. He played a few games, even played right back at times. But no, Rob's quality. He's going to be massive for us on the pitch and off the pitch.
And this league will be the third tier, is that right, in US soccer?
Yeah, it is effectively. It's strange when people say it because there's no promotion relegation, and they're all effectively independent of each other. So yeah, effectively you can say it's a third division, but I don't like to look at it like that. It's a professional league, fully professional. There's some good teams in it. It's probably the fastest growing league in America, because it just makes sense to a lot of teams, especially a lot of new franchises, as they call them in America, coming into or wanting to start a football team in their city. Financially, it makes a lot more sense. So yeah, I mean, there's already, I think there's 3 more teams. There's 2 teams coming in next year, and then there's 3 more teams coming in 2023, and I imagine they'll grow that number. They'll probably double it by, I'd say, 5 years time, the league. So it's a great league, very competitive, and it's a good standard.
Is the ambition to try and get to a point where you could potentially become an MLS franchise?
So again, it's how America works. No, our job is to grow the club within the USL League that we're playing in. I know we have the rights to go up to USL Championship if we feel that's where the growth within the community and Northern Colorado has taken us. But at the moment, this is to establish ourselves in the league in Northern Colorado. But no, there's no, again, it's just strange the way it is in America. No promotion relegation. And I mean, look, I'll give you financially, so to go into our league, I think it's roughly 2 to 3 million to enter. And then you have obviously the other costs that come along with it. I think the USL Championship averages at around 12 million. To get into the MLS, you're looking at it's over 200 million just to be allowed in. And on top of that, you have to have a stadium that's worth X amount. You have to have an owner that's worth X amount. So no, it's money rules a lot in America, unfortunately. But hopefully, I think USL are looking at the possibility at some stage of bringing in promotion relegation, which would be unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, as a player, you were a guy who just, weren't afraid to take risks in terms of moves you made throughout your career. I mean, football is taking you all around the world. How would you compare the US? I mean, when you were talking to, say, Rob about coming over to Colorado, like, how do you sell it to him? What's the football culture like? How invested are the fans in it? What's the general overall standard like in the States these days?
Yeah, when I'm talking to a player, kind of try to put myself in their shoes, and I was in their shoes. Initially, I came over to the States just for the lifestyle. I wanted to try something new, and that's a selling point in itself. America, possibly over here, we don't know what the level is and the standard is like of the leagues over there, because we may only watch the MLS, so we don't really know what the USL is like, let's say. So initially, I'm selling the lifestyle and the opportunity to live and travel around the States, because it is unbelievable. And look, people over here go to America on holidays all the time. So it's fantastic to live over there, and it's easy for an Irish person to adapt to the culture over there. You mentioned I was I played over in Iran and Malaysia and Libya, and look, that's a completely different ball game in terms of trying to settle into the culture. America's really easy to settle into. And then I'm just trying to obviously sell the football side of it, because it's a decent standard and it's a decent level. And the facilities are, I love Ireland, and I played here for 10 odd years, and the League of Ireland was great to me. But there's just no comparison between the facilities over in America. Crowds are better. It's just a different ball game over there, and that again is another selling point. Colorado, for me, Colorado is one of the most beautiful states in America. It's really scenic. It's one of the most scenic states. I'm looking out my office and I'm looking at the Rocky Mountains and snow on the mountains, which is beautiful. And I love Ireland. And Colorado has that kind of outdoor feel to it. A little bit obviously different than Ireland, but it still has that outdoor feel to it. That's nice and easy to settle into. And again, in our club, we're a brand new club. We're gonna build. We are building probably the best complex, and not probably the best complex in our league. And I would say it will compete against anything in the USL Championship. Probably better, and probably even better than some MLS clubs. In terms of what we're building, because what we're building is going to be brand new. We're going to have 10 outdoor practice fields. We're going to have obviously our stadium. We're going to have a full-sized indoor soccer dome as well, that we can utilize. Our strength and conditioning gym is on site. Restaurants, food, everything on site. So it's going to be a fantastic complex.
And have you been living there for the last few months then? You're based there now?
Been there now a couple of months, yeah. Been there a couple of months. As we prepare for next year. I'm just trying to recruit. We actually hosted our first trials, I guess combine as they call them over in America, last weekend. And there was a good turnout. There's over 400 people that wanted to show up, and we narrowed that down to 70, and that was a good turnout. We're just kind of touching back on, again, just selling it to players. It's like I've talked to a few Irish players, and I think I still feel it's the same. I remember years and years ago when did I first 2008, 2009, 2010 when I started kind of playing abroad myself. It's still the same old Irish players. They just think about England and Scotland, and that's it. That's the only thing on the radar. And for some of them, the top players in Ireland, they'll get a chance to play in England, and they'll get a chance to play the top level in England. And then you have kind of the next tier of Irish player, who are really good players and have done well in the League of Ireland. Maybe not at the right age, or not quite on that level to make it over in England. And some of those guys I've been reaching out to, and again, it just kind of again, Scotland, England. That's all they think about. And I'm trying to open their mind and go, there's so much more opportunity out there. And it doesn't have to be America; it can be elsewhere. And I just wish players will kind of look at that and appreciate that there's other opportunities outside of England and Scotland.
I think potentially that could be about to change now with the new Brexit laws. Players have to stay, they can't move to England before the age of 18. So you're noticing in the Ireland underage squads more and more that there's a lot of younger players basically playing in Germany or Italy, which, that's, as you touch on there, that's broadly can be a positive thing.
Yeah, no, it is. And I think, again, if you look at the Irish national team and how many players came through League of Ireland, and I was listening to a podcast there, I think it was Stephen Rice, and just touching on what's best, or for a young Irish player. And I still think players, the best Irish players, 16, 17, 18, 19, just stay in Ireland and should try and get into a first team setup, and get some senior games, because that for me, that's the biggest development in your career. And I think that's the right pathway for an Irish player. And I would absolutely recommend that to any Irish player, to stay here 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, try to establish yourself here. And it's being proven already that opportunities then come when you're ready at 2021, and you're actually more mature to take them when you do get it. in terms of America, again, I'm looking at that kind of second crop, maybe, who aren't at that level to get to England, and that maybe 23, 24, 25, 26, that might be slightly too old for an English team to take a gamble on them, but are still very good. And for them guys, I'm trying to say, listen, there's more opportunities, and one of them is America. And now we have an Irish coach who's leading the team that's willing and wanting to give Irish guys a chance. So again, I'm delighted to get Rob. I'll get one or two more. I've just been a couple more that I'd hope to get, and trying to sell them that picture has been, I guess, more difficult than maybe what I thought.
Just to check back finally, Eamon, on the club where it started for you, really, Bray Wanderers and their recent amalgamation with Cabinteely. What did you make of that?
Yeah, it's a strange one. I mean, look, firstly, I remember when Cabinteely were created, I thought it was a bit of an odd creation, given just where they are geographically and their association. Well, they were obviously, I think they were associated right by St. Joseph's boys, who were always associated with Bray Wanderers, and then it became a bit weird. And then you had Pat Devlin, who was the man who signed me to Bray Wanderers when he was coach there, and then he left Bray and got involved in Cabinteely. Eddie Gormley was coaching there, who again I played with in Bray. So it was I just found it odd, the whole thing, and I didn't think, I don't know what crowds. I never got to a Cabinteely game, so I don't know what kind of crowds they got. But no, I'm happy that. I think it's a good thing that they've kind of come together. I don't know how it's going to work. I definitely think it's a good thing that they've come together. I'm delighted that Pat Devlin's gone back to Bray, and he's going to probably be the main guy at Bray, kind of trying to group it all together. I think it's for the best. I just don't know how it's going to what's going to happen over the next few months and leading into next season. I do think it's the best for the long run, because two teams there just didn't make sense.
Yeah. Well, look, I'm sure you'll be keeping a close eye from the States, Eamon, and very best of luck to you and the team in 2022. Thanks a lot for having a chat with us.
Yeah. Cheers, Anthony.
All right. That was Eamon Zayed speaking to Anthony about his new venture in North Colorado. It sounds exciting. American sports are that little bit different. American soccer is that little bit different from, what we're used to over here. He's not aiming at promotion. He's not worried about relegation. It's more about kind of the project, isn't it? And developing the team, and it being US Sports developing the team as a business as well, I suppose, is a rather large part of it.
That's exactly it. I mean, right now, as we said earlier, that there is no promotion or relegation, so it's about establishing the team and seeing, can they garner interest. It's so vast. You look at Colorado, there's so many sporting franchises going on, not just in soccer, but football, baseball, basketball. So it's such a huge region. So there seems to be the potential for growth. Eamon is confident of that, and as I said, it'll be interesting just keeping an eye from an Irish perspective, because he's very actively trying to bring Irish guys over. He's very open about the fact that he just, he would have a good into the Irish market, and he would have a lot of faith in Irish players going over there and making an impact and being suited to the football and to the lifestyle. So, as I said, Rob Cornwall is going over, and we'll probably see a few more.
Great. Thanks for that, Anthony. I'm not sure if we'll have a soccer podcast next week. It might be the week after, it being Christmas. But James and Adrian are getting well-deserved breaks, so we online lads are going to keep it going. I think Raf has an interview with Josh Cullen coming up, so that should be well worth a listen. And in the meantime, you can check out the rugby podcast, which came out this week. And there'll be a GA podcast with my fine self, a quiz with Anthony Daly and Pat Spillane on Christmas Eve. And then on Christmas Day, we have Jackie Hurley. Jackie Hurley has a quiz, especially about women's sport in Ireland. And the 6 competitors are all some of the top women's sports stars from this week. So that's going out on Christmas Day, and we'll have that podcast as well. So that's worth listening to. So it just leaves us to say Happy Christmas to you all, and hope you keep well and keep safe, and we'll catch you very soon. Goodbye.